Okay, this lesson for the Cornet Project class is just a reminder of how I was trained at the seminary and how the seminary trains is keep it simple students. Dr. Don Price, for example, spoke of speaking at a particular level that is intelligible for anyone 12 years old and under. So that's a challenge because to simplify things is very can be more difficult. But like I like to tell people, it's not rocket science. However, scientists like religionists have their own talking points and they stay with those. They don't deviate, so that when you notice someone's tethered and has a vested interest, let's say in jargon within Calvin's ism, Luther's ism, Arminius and his ism, Molina and his, and Pelagian and his, or Pelagia, whatever. And then scientists, research and information was given to us at our church years and years ago about the threat to teachers in academia who were being threatened if they indicated faith or anything about God. So they were threatened with losing whatever reprisals can be, or incurring reprisals and punishment. So it's more obvious when you notice someone has to remain with their talking point, their formed categories, such as evolution. It's just an assertion. They can't demonstrate it. And then to show you how you don't have to be an astrophysicist, I was again reminded someone had a speaker, an astrophysicist, trying to explain how the earth is young. And that's wonderful, I'm sure, but I don't know where you would find an audience that would understand what he was saying. So it was interesting to see that an astrophysicist, at least he found someone that wanted to listen to him. So sometimes the complexity bias, if something's so complex, we seem to give it credibility. Here's a quote about calculus. Without calculus, we wouldn't have cell phones, computers, microwave ovens. We wouldn't have radio, television, ultrasound for expectant mothers, or GPS for lost travelers. We wouldn't have split the atom, unraveled the human genome, or put astronauts on the moon. We might not even have the Declaration of Independence. And he goes on and says, a curiosity of history that the world was changed forever by an arcane branch of mathematics. How could it be that a theory originally about shapes ultimately reshaped civilization? Well, my connection with NASA, someone asked me about NASA, was a physicist named Richard Feynman. And he was involved in the root cause analysis of the explosion, the spaceship Challenger in 1986. There's also a time for me where there was, let's say, the most severe threat to my own life as far as a particular disease I had. So it says the essence of the answer lies in a quip that the physicist Richard Feynman made to the novelist Herman Wouk when they were discussing the Manhattan Project. Wouk, this novelist, was doing research for a big novel. He hoped to write about World War II, and he went to Caltech to interview physicists who had worked on the bomb, one of whom was Feynman. After the interview, as they were parting, Feynman asked Wouk if he knew calculus. No, he said. And then Feynman said, you had better learn it, said Feynman. It's the language God talks. So obviously Feynman was famous enough and beyond the reach of threats by academia, because that would be something in certain academic fields you would lose and maybe even lose your job. So with King James Bible and third grade arithmetic, we can demonstrate what even scientists would avoid, just as religionists would avoid. As we were taught in the seminary, Dr. Mark Thornton always told us, if you make something easy, you need to expect pushback. But the amount of work we did to make something easy is why we are happy to give it to others so they don't have to go through that arduous task. As Dr. Penn said, much study is wearisome to the flesh, particularly his own. So let's just look at this if we applied it to how to show and prove a rationale for recent Earth creation without having to sever our ties with those who are saying old or those who are saying young, which seems to be a banter of choice. You can get into that banter and that disagreement, obviously, if you want to. Apparently, people are confused about arguing with each other. They confuse that with collaboration. So if you're not interested in collaborating, I have a life, so I don't waste my time arguing with people who don't know what they're talking about. So a recent Earth creation, if we just notice between young and old, that gap there, notice that there's a gap here. There's a gap. Doesn't seem to be able to be bridged. It's called a knowledge gap. That's what we were trained to recognize. We were taught and trained, encouraged to build bridges. Even the theme at Landmark, where my wife had attended for years, the last pastor, very intelligent genius, even had a theme, building bridges, relationally as well. And then, of course, so if we're going to bridge this gap, all we have to do is, let's say you're just limited, bless your heart, as people pity us almost if we use the King James Bible. Well, let's say that's all you have. And you noticed one day to 1,000 years, and you noticed 1,000 years to one day. And of course, you remember in third grade arithmetic, the inverse relationship in between division and multiplication. That's what it is. So we take that ratio, and there were people debating as between 6,000 and 20,000 years old. As Dr. Penn said, remember, define your term. So chronological, and we have that. There was nothing difficult for us. So the difference was here, the difference, just delta, was 14,000. And as Dr. Johnson and I were given the assignment to go work out this formula, and I called Dr. Kelly often, and so we collaborated. We weren't arguing. We were free and colleagues to discuss, and we noticed people were always falling into either or-ism. So we noticed the difference, 14,000. So we started 7,000, 6,000 to 7,000 and began to process it from there. So 250-year increments was our very first one. Well, then Dr. Penn said, however, there's 12 hours in the day. He was quoting Jesus, 12 hours per day. So that was for us now to differentiate day from night. So we now just drop that down, 12 hours per night. And we go 6,250 again. Now we have our 24 hours, including day and night. Again, it's not easy. It was easy for us because of Dr. Penn's guidance, and it was easy for him because he would constantly give us more homework. And it was a joy, though, because the fellowship is what we enjoy the most. Is you're taught, especially I've noticed among what's called free grace theology, they don't put you in a box to hold you down, and especially the people that once taught something called landmark. They meant go back to the words as well in the Bible and don't move those. So we just used the data we had in our King James English Bible, for example. So now you come up with 12,500. And again, you're doing this on a piece of paper at Starbucks, a coffee shop, a donut shop, and you have people sitting there, and a scientist is there, and a religious person's there, and you have a chance to save them both, reach them and show them the credibility of the Bible and how intelligent it is. So now we have 12,500 years, and then you just take that number, 500, multiply it by a 360-day year, which is another thing Dr. Penn reminded us of. So that gave us 4.5 million years. And then we multiplied it by 1,000. One day is 1,000, so 360. So here's days. And then we multiply it by 1,000. That gave us 4.5 billion years. Sorry, this was days. Sorry. This is days. I don't know why I do that, but it's been a while since I've gone over this, 1,000 years. That's what's good about it. Once you work it out and you see it, it's obvious now that someone's shown it to us. So that's really nice. So then that is what we know to be decay, the amount of decay, and this is the amount of decay. There we go. So that's good. So then if we go back this direction, take 4.5 times 1,000, and now it's changed this to days and this to years. Yeah, this to years. What we wound up with was 2.78 approximately. That's how many years 1,000 days is. Well, we multiplied it by this 4.5. It equaled 12.5 billion years. And again, that's the total amount of decay in the universe. So we have the amount of decay of the Earth, and then of the universe. And you can research any of that on Google and notice how much dark matter and dark energy is out there. And then again, of course, Dr. Penn, being a scientist and wanting us to make it easy in spite of the pushback we would get, he reminded us that 2.78 had a relationship to the number E, which is 2.718281828. And that is the number that is used when you compound interest. So he was noticing that this is a compounded because it's accelerated. So now we notice decay rates. You can have a conversation about decay rates with anyone now. Their acceleration, Psalm 90, for example. Why did they live 1,000 years and now we live only 100? That is approximately. It's so unusual to live 100. We would be impressed with that. So it's just how you do it, but you have to be careful because when people have an aversion, or it could cost them. The Bible even mentions secret disciples because they were afraid of the religious leaders, because they could cost you and punish you if you didn't go along. So you had to pick Pharisee or Sadducee, similar to these constant categories that are always formed. But anyway, this is how easy it is. So you can go slow, though, because even the scientist is not aware of this. They only tout or teach what they're told. And unless you know some researcher, if we didn't have scientists involved in research, we'd never have breakthroughs. And if we didn't have people who were on their own doing their own work, like Dr. Penn did, we wouldn't have the cell phone. If we didn't have Leibniz and Newton who developed calculus, we already read a list of things we wouldn't have. And again, so this is it. Just when you say keep it simple, it's really, it's not, well, keep it simple, students. Keep it simple. And you can make it easy. Make it easy for others, but it doesn't mean it was easy to make it easy. So that's why I'm thankful for the work of, again, I attend a very unusual seminary. It was a seminary that only had pastors as a professor. So how they do that and how they still do it, that's called the grace of God. And it is not easy. It is not easy. It is not easy to make it easy. So when we talk about keeping something simple, we talk about making it easy, this was a process of students, research assistants going to a teacher and he had parameters and guided research. And we had been trained in the seminary, Sysmac theologian, who was an engineer, then theologian, Dr. John Penn, scientist, and then our language teachers, linguistic scholars. So it was a joy to be equipped and have the tools to do it. It's just, we say keep it easy, keep it simple, make it easy. That doesn't mean to keep it simple or make it easy is easy to do. So you have a blessed day. Enjoy this lesson.